Welcome to Crafting Your Next Move.
Welcome to Crafting Your Next Move with Lori Kraft, Associate Broker with the Kraft team at Origin Realty Group. Lori is a top-producing Houston Realtor with more than 15 years of experience helping clients buy and sell homes across the greater Houston area. Known for her honest advice and boutique approach, she and her team combine cutting-edge marketing with good old-fashioned service to deliver results that speak for themselves. I'm Leann Lyon, and we are talking today about how long it really takes to sell a home in Houston right now, and what sellers should realistically expect as they prepare to list. Great to see you again, Laurie.
Good seeing you too.
Laurie, what do you need to understand about a home before you can estimate how long it's going to take to sell in a Houston market?
Well, we say there's three fundamentals in real estate: location, condition, and price, right? Those are the three. And those three will drive how fast a home sells. And it's really kind of hard to assess if you don't know the area. And I can pull comps, but I'm also going to have a feel for the buyer for that particular house. So we'll go in, we'll look at the condition, because if you are living, and I've got one like this right now, if you've got a house that has not been touched since 1978, that's a very specific buyer pool. Your buyer pool got this small because that's somebody who knows they're going to have to put a lot of money into it. And it sounds counterintuitive, but the bigger that house is, the smaller your buyer pool becomes. And the reason for that is because every room is dollars. So you're going to have to adjust location, condition, and price. One of those variables has to move. So if you know your condition is not great, and then you also know that maybe your location isn't as desirable as some others, you're going to have to offset all that with price. Price is normally the variable you can most easily fix. So those are my three drivers.
Okay, so in that $700,000 to $800,000 range, what are you seeing in terms of how long homes are actually taking to go under contract in today's market? All other things considered equal, I guess.
Well, what I will say is people tend to forget that all of Harris County, just Harris, is huge. We're talking about 4 or 5 million people. And then when you add on the other 12 counties that surround it, we're at 8.5, 9 million. There's a very strong possibility Houston, all by itself, will surpass Chicago as the third largest city in the country. So that tells you how big we are, right? So what I did is I went through and I just kind of looked at some stuff because I can speak to my stomping ground, which is basically Northwest Houston. I do a lot in the inner loop too, on the north side of the inner loop, like Galleria area, Memorial Villages, Heights, that part of Oaks, Oral Oaks, that area. I do that. But we're looking at about 70 to 90 days in general in those two portions of the world. The reality is in the last 30 days, things slowed down in the loop. So you're looking closer to that 90-day range. But to put things in perspective, inside the loop is a different buyer pool and it's a different price point. So the people or the house, imagine your house that you think of at $1 million. That house is probably going to meet your picture in the burbs. It is not going to match your picture in town here. In town, you're going to get a much smaller property. It could be as big as 2,300 square feet. You might get mature landscaping. You might get a little bit larger lot, but it's likely to be a smaller lot because that's what your money buys you in town. It's just more expensive. So it takes it takes a broader buyer pool. You have to throw out a big net to catch just a few fish in that inner loop. So you're going to have longer days on market. What I did notice in the last 30 days, ironically, you're seeing more movement in the suburbs. You've gone from about 75 days on market to really and truly about 50, 60. But inside the loop, you went from 60 days on market to closer to 90. So, and that's just in the last 30 days. So that can all flip-flop. It'll change again. I also went to the Southwest side because I do some business down there too. And it mirrors what we see In Northwest Houston, it's looking about the same. You're looking about 60 days, give or take.
So when a home does sell quickly, what usually stands out about how it was positioned before it hit the market?
It's turnkey. It needs to look like a magazine. And I know that's very frustrating to people because what I hear inevitably from sellers is it's a used house. First of all, we don't say used, we say pre-existing. But they'll say that. Why do they expect to be perfect? It's an older home. They should know. No, they don't. Because let's position yourself like a buyer. Your buyer is buying for the most expensive amount of money anybody's ever paid for this house. And then add on top of that, their rates are high, relatively speaking, to what we've seen for the past 20 years. Now, historically, they're average, but these individuals that are buying homes now have never seen rates this high. So it's a sticker shock for them. And then you add on the cost to buy a house. It used to be that we would say, you don't want to do more than 3 times your income in your mortgage note. Well, Harris and all these counties also come with high property taxes and high insurance, and all that's incorporated into your note. So that note is no longer 3 times. People are hoping that note isn't just double or quadruple. So you need to make a significant amount of money in order to be able to even afford the house that you could have afforded on half your salary 10 years ago. So your home needs to look like all they have to do is move in.
So on the other side, when a listing sits longer, maybe more than the 90 days, what patterns are tending to show up there early on?
Well, you will find I can it frustrates sellers when I do this, but I'm honest, I don't believe in lying to my people. You tell me you want to list just round number at 500, and I tell you, Mr. Seller, I really feel like we are 10 over. If we just would go 10 under, I think we're going to get traffic. And they will push you and push you. And eventually, let's say I cave and I say, okay, we'll list for 500. I will know in the first week that home is on market if we are priced and positioned wrong. And you don't want to be trying to fix things after the fact. I have one right now where it was just a situation where they put a lot of money and time and effort into the house. So they had a certain dollar in their head and they didn't finish it. It wasn't finished. So we went ahead and listed it. I didn't know it wasn't finished until I started fine tooth combing it because they were out, so I could. And that's when you see it all. So after a couple of weeks of negative feedback, poor showings, packed open houses where everybody picked it apart, we pulled it off market. I said, we need to go back in. You need to correct all these problems that you sort of covered up with rugs and paintings and things that I couldn't see. And you're going to need to redo your landscaping. And then we're going to reposition on market. And Mr. Seller, we need to be now not 10 under, but 25 under. And we've had nothing but showings since we positioned it.
Yeah. That can feel so painful to be like, I have to spend all this money and drop my price. But that's why, people just don't know what they don't know. And that's why
Right.
they should be working with a professional.
Yeah, it is very painful. And I did a little video on this not too long ago. People have a tendency to decide in their head what they think. Either they watch HGTV or they talk to their neighbor, and they'll decide in their head what is going to be the perfect color. And they should take away a closet and make it into a wet bar. But they don't talk to any realtors about it. They just go do it. And then they'll call you and you're like, everything in this house is gray. People don't, it's cold. It feels cold. People don't like that. So your realtor will probably have to go in and stage it to warm it up. Or they'll take, like I said, they'll take a closet, which is very valuable storage space, and they'll make it into a bar. Given the valuation, I say a bar might be worth $2,000. The closet's probably worth 7. You just lost value. And you spent money to lose value. So before you do all these things, have a realtor or maybe even 2 walk it and give you their thoughts.
So once a home is live, what do you do and what do you look for in those first few days besides traffic? I guess there's traffic, there's feedback, but what else that tells you whether the timeline is likely to stay on track or to start and stretch out?
Well, you're going to look for a couple things. I think the biggest one you've already mentioned, traffic. There really isn't any other indicator. And now we've had a couple of lawsuits regarding feedback, so agents are very reluctant to give feedback. So they don't want to give feedback and then have their buyers sue them. So you are lucky to get an agent to return advice, and they won't even tell you, hey, you need to be doing these things. So what I do is I look first at that traffic. If I'm not getting, I look at my analytics, and there's multiple places you can look for that. I can look for it on MLS, through HAR. You can look for it through homes.com, realtor.com, Zillow. They will all give you metrics on who's looking at it. If you see a ton of activity online, several favorites, but nobody's going to see it, what that tells you is they're waiting for a price drop. The price doesn't match what they're seeing. So that's an indicator. Another thing I'll do, because I can't get that feedback from buyers, what I'll do is I'll hold it. If I've seen either no activity or scant activity or a lot of activity and no offers, I'll have a broker's open. Hit or miss whether you get people to show. But I usually give them wine and food, and then they come. And then you ask them key questions. What was your first reaction when you walked up? What do you think of the staging? Does it help or hurt? What do you think about the color choices? If it were your listing, what would you do different to move it? So then you're not just looking at it through your eyes, you're looking at it through the eyes of agents that are walking it with their buyers. And that can be very helpful.
So sometimes there is activity, there maybe even steady activity, but the offers just aren't coming in. What tends to be happening in that case?
Exactly that. You're priced out. And so what I'll tell you is it's a weird thing to think about. But when you think about search engines, right? They are poised in increments. So you can have an increment of 25 or an increment of 10. And as the price goes up, the increments get smaller. So if I'm looking for a house and I'm looking for one between 500 and 550, I've already been scrolling and sweeping through lots of pictures. So I know what I should be expecting at that price point.
Yeah.
So I might have something that's borderline where I'm like, I don't know if it's really worth that, but maybe it'll look better in person. And then I go see it and it does not meet expectations. You got a pricing problem. If you're seeing a lot of activity and no offers and no feedback that says your floors are horrific, the paint color's terrible. If you're not seeing consistent feedback like that, it's price. There is no other real indicator.
So can you share an example of where a home's timeline shifted in a meaningful way and what adjustments made that happen?
Well, the one I just gave about when we withdrew had them do all of their work. And once it was really and truly ready, we put it on. I have another one though in Austin, which that one, and I do Travis, Lake Travis. I will sell up there. I don't sell Austin in general, but Lake Travis I know. So I have one there that we went on in September, October, because it met her timeline. And she really wanted to get top dollar. We put it on with all the warnings. This is probably not a good time to put it on. I know you want to get to California, but this is everything's falling apart. And it did. Rates skyrocketed, everything dropped. We kept it up through Christmas. And finally I said, we're not getting showings. All it's doing is adding days on market. I don't see this meeting your needs. And so what we decided to do is we took it off and we're going to wait until June. And we're going to see what happens with rates in May. And then we'll reposition it, start it as a brand spanking new listing, and we'll put it up in June.
In the situation you mentioned earlier, where they had to do some fixes, they had to drop the price, you put it back out there. Is there a chance in some situations that they may end up actually getting more, or is that not really happening right now?
Absolutely. Absolutely, that can happen. And it's funny because your realtors will be then suspicious. And then when you tell them, yeah, I've got multiples. And they're like, oh, this has been on market for 120 days. How can you have multiples? I said, yeah, because I dropped the price by $30,000. And now it meets the what the expectation is. And
Sure.
so now everybody wants it. So it's a misnomer in the industry that you can go down, but you can't go up. Totally not true. You price it right, you can always go up because I have one that I just sold multiples. In one day, we sold multiples. And I had 2 agents question my pricing. And they're like, well, you sure? And I'm like, it seems really low. Well, we had 6 offers and we went 20,000 over list. And it was, a price where that was significant. It was almost 15% over list. And I'm going to scramble to get it to appraise, but we'll figure that out. I'll cross that bridge and I'll present my stack of offers and say all over list. But that's where it does go higher than what the list was. You just have to position it right.
There you go. Well, as we wrap up today's episode, when you're guiding a seller through this process, how do you help them stay focused on the bigger picture instead of reacting to every showing or a lull in the activity?
Well, what I do is I set them up on somebody called it like Wednesday something or other, but I just every Monday I check in with them because it's after the weekend and I get the fallout from the weekend. So they get an update, and I'm a over communicator. So I will usually touch base with them on Monday after the weekend and Thursday before the weekend. So we look at if there were showings this week, if adjustments need to be made. And it's not out of the realm possibility for me to say to a seller that's starting to get really anxious, you know what? Tamp the brakes. We've been through one weekend. It was Easter weekend. Let's give it another weekend. If we're still not seeing activity, we're going to need to change some things. So that's hard for it to.
Well, there we go. Well, that is it for today's episode of Crafting Your Next Move. If you're thinking about selling in Cypress, Tomball, or anywhere in the greater Houston area, visit craftrealtyteam.com to learn more or connect directly with Laurie's team. And remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. Thank you, Laurie.
Thanks. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.